Microphone check, 1, 2, 3. Watching.
Yeah, see you're up.
So when you hold it,
Let's. Okay, it's showtime. Can I ask everybody to have a seat, please? We'll give you about 30 seconds to do that, and then we're going to get started with the very first Planning Committee meeting of this term of council, with several new faces around the table. And because this is the first meeting of our Planning Committee for this term, I'm going to speak a little bit, but first of all I wanted to do some housekeeping just for the future so you know what to expect. So this is for people who tend to come here often as delegations, people who are in the media, people that are elected, people that are staff, everyone. The way we're going to roll from now on, at 9:30, we're going to start our meetings. So it's 9:30, we're starting, and we're going to really try hard to stick to that. At 12:30, faithfully, we're breaking for lunch. Okay? 12:30, count on it, no matter where we are in an item. And at 1:15, we're back. The reason I'm doing that is to make it 1:15. 12:30, 1:15. Dinner we'll worry about after the fact, which is why we got a microwave, which I could segue into that. But the reason that we're doing that is so that if it's a long agenda and you look at the factor number 12 and you figure there's some contentious items, you don't have to spend your whole day here. For the media, it allows you to plan your days as well. For councillors and for staff, I think it makes a better use of our time. And as to that microwave, I'm going to let you know that should the media or the staff want to stay here and work during that time, or any of the councillors, you feel free to use the microwave. Okay? Later on in the day, when Ms. Snedden and I may pull out some homemade cookies to heat up or some popcorn, it will be well appreciated, I'm sure, because as Councillor Shirley was saying, sometimes we do go very late depending on what the subject matter is. And I think, and the one last thing, if we have a large agenda or even an agenda that we expect a lot of delegations, we will be holding that in Andy Hayden Hall, in council chambers. It's easier, I think, certainly for us, but it's certainly easier for the delegations that come, the development community that comes, the media that comes, etc., to have some room. The room won't heat up so much. It'll be far more collegial as we go forward. So that's it on the housekeeping. Anything to add, Vice Chair Tierney?
That's great.
Okay. So, as I said, welcome to the first meeting of the Planning Committee in this term of council. I'm honored to have the job of committee chair and look forward with Vice Chair Tierney to working with such a strong group of colleagues. Bienvenue à la première réunion du comité de l'urbanisme du présent mandat du Conseil municipal. C'est pour moi un honneur de présider ce comité et le vice-président Tierney et moi sommes heureux de pouvoir collaborer avec une équipe aussi solide. I see 5 building blocks for planning in Ottawa in this term of council. First, a strong city building agenda. Second, fair and efficient approval decisions. Third, increased development certainty. Fourth, better public engagement. And fifth, innovation. First, on the importance of city building agenda. This is an exciting time for planning in Ottawa. The city's population is going to reach 1 million over the next decade. Just think of what our downtown is going to look like at the end of this term of council. With the completion of the Confederation Line project, the revitalization of the Rideau Centre and the NAC, our streetscaping plans on Rideau and Queen Street, and finally development on Le Breton Flats and Chaudière Islands. Through this investment and careful planning, we are helping to create the buzz and the beat that our downtown has needed. Because of this, the surrounding urban core, like Westboro and Hintonburg, Little Italy, Chinatown, Vanier, and New Edinburgh, among others, are thriving. We will need to protect attractive and reasonable development in these destination neighborhoods. But city building extends beyond the downtown. It also is about recognizing that the suburban way of life is still the dream and lifestyle choice of many, and to this end, the suburban growth will continue, and it should continue. This council will complete the work of the previous one in ensuring that the goals of intensification are balanced on the on-the-ground realities of life in the suburbs. City building in Ottawa means as well that our rural way of life is preserved and our villages strong. That is why we have and continue to have the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. But the decisions that this committee will make will inevitably impact the rural area just the same. And this being the case, every decision that we make here around this table at this committee must be done with an eye to every corner of the 2,800 square kilometers in our city of Ottawa. In the last term of council, we developed and approved forward-looking new master plans for land development and transportation for the entire city. The work on the official plan, the infrastructure plan, and the transportation master plan and the pedestrian and cycling plans involved an unprecedented level of public engagement. We now have the task of putting these plans into effect. It's about implementation through local plans, updated zoning and council decisions that implement that official plan. We've got the plans in place, now let's get building. Now on to the second building block, a fair development review process. We want to be clear, fair, and firm with the developers who are building this city. The development review process needs to be timely, the city needs to be clear and consistent about its requirements, and developers need to respect city plans. We won't seize the opportunity of this city if we are adversaries. We need an environment of trust and respect, so let's work together. The third building block is a greater development certainty. The city is bringing the ideas and guidance of the master plans down to the neighborhood level, with local plans that provide increased certainty for residents and developers. A large block of implementing zoning has been prepared for key development areas in Ottawa. This zoning package implements the rules that were set out in the official plan, which was approved by Council in 2013. The new zoning package, if approved by Council next month, would mean less red tape, shorter timelines, and reduced costs for businesses and for residents who will be able to build without applying for a zoning change. Further implementing zoning will be before committee this year and next. Planning Committee approved new community design plans for Preston Carling and Scott Streets in 2014, and 9 other community design plans are also in development, and we have many others complete and on the books. Again, these local plans provide clarity and fewer instances of divisive planning fights. Infill development guidelines are being designed to be easy to understand and implement for developers and residents. That's still a work in progress. The fourth building block is better public engagement. In the last 2 years, we have significantly moved the yardstick forward on public engagement. Like most other Canadian cities, and indeed cities around the world, planning is the single most contentious issue. Single most contentious area of consultation and information sharing. Planning can be changed, and change is often difficult. Planning can mean disruption in our lives, but planning can also mean preservation, and planning can mean better neighborhoods. For too long, planning has been seen as a negative in this building and in our community, partly due to uncertainty in the rules of the game, and partly due to poor communications. This began to change last term. So how did that change? We opened the doors to the Urban Design Review Panel. We're undertaking a pilot in Councillor Chernichenko's Capital Ward with respect to pre-application consultation. We have updated our report templates to Committee for Readability. We reviewed many of our touch points with the public, and with the goal of ensuring that everything is in plain language and fully accessible. The most obvious to the average resident was the overhaul we did on our development review signs. And I'm pleased to say that we won an award for that change. The Dazzling Notice Award. We won it at the end of last year, and this was for the signs that you now see around the community, which actually shows what the project might look like. In the next few months, we will be launching some new ways in which the public will receive information and be engaged. I also know that many of my colleagues around the table and residents have other ideas on how we can further collaborate. I look forward to those conversations. My fifth and final building block is innovation. We're moving ahead with the Building Better and Smarter Suburbs project to look at how we can improve suburban design involving all city departments, utilities, and school boards. We'll also review our employment lands to ensure that they're in the right places, responding to market forces, and helping to create communities where people can live, work, and play. The city wants to see continued improvement in the design of new buildings, an area where Ottawa saw a huge improvement in the last term of council. We're going to help make that happen through the continued good work of our talented in-house staff and the Urban Design Review Panel, and our excellent developers who will bring a lot of their talent to the table as well. Ultimately, I will judge whether or not I have served this committee well as chair if we can accomplish what I have set out. Many of you know me to be an honest broker, one who likes to get the job done and who's not necessarily big on policy and procedure. I just don't let it get in my way, is what I'm saying. I know it's important, however. I look forward to 4 years of implementation with you, changing the channel on how we talk about planning in Ottawa, and ultimately on building this beautiful capital. Thanks very much, everybody. I hope that that's going to set us in the right direction. And thank you to Mr. Moser and all of his team, too, for all the work that they have done in assisting Vice Chair Tierney and I since we earned your support and became the chair and vice chair of this committee. So now we'll get to the real business today. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 5 and 6 on today's agenda. For the items listed above, only those who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board if Council does not adopt an amendment within 120 days of receipt of the application for zoning and 180 days for an official plan amendment. A comment sheet is available at the door for anyone wishing to submit written comments on these amendments. So, committee members, do we have any declarations of interest? No? Confirmation of minutes, and just for the record, you have to have been at this meeting as a sitting member, I'm sure. I would think, usually with minutes. November 25th, so Vice Chair Tierney? Carried. Thank you. Okay, the first item today is the application to alter the Charles Billing House at 187 Billings Avenue, a property designated in Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. We do have speakers, so we will be holding that. And we have a presentation as well. Number 2 is the application to demolish 140 Howick Street, a property designated in Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located in the Rockcliffe Park Heritage Conservation District. Is there anyone to speak on that? No? Does anyone on the committee want to hold that item? No? Is it carried then? Thank you. Number 3 is the status update planning committee inquiries. Does anyone have any questions or want to hold this, or is it received? Received? Thank you. Number 4 is the Planning Committee terms of reference. It's pretty much the same as the last term with one small exception on DCs for the rurals. Does anyone want to hold this item? We have no delegations. Is it carried? Thank you. Number 5, I'm going to go to Vice Chair Tierney on this one. He has a motion to defer.
Great,
and he'll tell you why.
Thank you, Chair Harder. That the Planning Committee approve the agenda item number 5, Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-250, anomalies and minor corrections to the Q1 2015 be deferred to the Planning Committee meeting of the 10th of February 2015, as there is incorrect version appear within the agenda.
Thank you. Is that clear? Any questions? Yes, what it was is that the incorrect, a different version, the wrong version, went out with the agenda as opposed to the one that is the one that that we should be approving. And so for the public to have a chance at seeing the corrected version, we're holding off for one meeting. Is that carried?
Okay, but
Or a question?
Yeah, there were elements set to go to the February 5th council. Is that correct?
Oh, it's going to go to ARAC first, and then it's coming back to us.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so that is deferred. So number 6, we're going to hold that for a presentation. And the reason is that, this is setting a new stage, I think, in suburban development, and I think that for an information piece for everyone in the room, I think that it's good to have a chat. And I know that Councillor Leeper and I were chatting earlier about it, so I'm sure that you'll all have a couple of comments at that time, too. Okay, so before we get to number 7, I wanted to, which begins the tour of items under the jurisdiction of our Chief Building Officer, Arlene Gregoire. Where is she? There you are. And so before we start that, before I go through those, I wanted to just wanted to note that this is the very last Planning Committee meeting for Arlene Gregoire, our Chief Building Official and Director of Building Code Services, as she's retiring at the end of this month after 30 years of public service. Arlene is one of the key managers at the city responsible for overseeing implementation of the Ontario Building Code, the rules that help keep us a safe community. She joined the former city of Ottawa in the summer of 1984 and held various posts, becoming director of the branch and chief building officer in December of 2001. I didn't realize it was that long ago. Really? That was the first year of amalgamation or something, wasn't it? Wow. Arlene has been in the thick of it on some of the city's most challenging issues, from demolition by neglect to how to handle marijuana grow-ops. She is known in City Hall as a no-nonsense manager who cares deeply about the city and is dedicated to protecting the public interest. Her calm approach and capacity for hard work is highly regarded. We're going to miss Arlene as she starts the next stage of her life, and she's already been test driving it a little bit, but we won't say where. I understand some ambitious expeditions by foot. Arlene, we're going to miss you for sure, but we thank you for all your hard work over these years and for the job that you've done on behalf of all the taxpayers in the City of Ottawa. So before we let you go, as I said, we do have a few committee reports to wind up, and so I'm going to go to them. Number 7 is the waiver to while we have you in the room. Number 7 is the waiver to permanent signs on private property. This one is at 3812 North Bowesville Road. And do I have any speakers? I don't do. Does anyone want to hold this item? Is the staff recommendation to refuse carried? Carried, thank you. I know that Councillor Middick was supporting the recommendation as well. And then we have street name change. Avenue Founder Avenue to Avenue Robert Grant Avenue in Stittsville. Did you want to hold the item?
I just wanted to say something relating to that, and Arlene.
With committee indulgence?
Yeah, I just wanted to also congratulate her for work over the past several years. We have changed duplicate street names. 148 street names have changed, and almost all of them without much disruption at all, and that's taken a lot of effort, work, and skill, so I wanted to congratulate her on that.
Well said. So is that carried? And Councillor, before we do that, Councillor Cadre, did you want to have a small comment?
No, I just have a comment on item number 8, just a short comment.
Yes.
Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just want to thank all the staff and my community for recommending that name number 1, and for today hoping to have that item carried on consent, and obviously at council to be approved also, because I think from a community perspective, it is an important name in the community, and beyond that, this is a brand new street going in, so I figured do the naming now rather than create confusion at a later date and not have Arlene to back us up at that point. So thank you.
And it's a grand story, really. For those in the audience, if you haven't read why we're doing this, it really is a good story. Is that carried? Carried, thank you. So now on to number 9, minor variances to permanent signs on private property, 3905 Innes Road. I have no speakers. Anybody want to hold it or have questions? Is it carried then? Thank you. And permanent signs on private property, amendment for permanent real estate information signs. Does anyone have any questions? Yes? We'll hold it, or just a question? Okay, well then she has to stay for the whole meeting. So if you have just a question?
Yeah, Chair, just a question. I don't know if you want to push the item now, but I did ask Arlene a question. She's going to get back to us with the answer. So,
Then do you have the answer? Oh, she does?
So maybe I should just explain.
Yes.
Yeah, so the question was, on this matter, we're being asked to approve the allowance of condos to affix a vacancy or a rental sign. And the permitted sign, according to the staff report, was 1.5 square meters. And my question was, is that a change from the existing size of what those units can presently place in residential zones?
Madam Chair, the proposal before you is recommending signs for specific purpose that is smaller than what the ground signs are presently permitted in our bylaw. So the ground sign that serves for identification for condominiums is actually larger. It's up to 3 meters square in area. This amendment that we're introducing is for specific purposes of providing a permanent setting for real estate signs as opposed to them propagating and multiplying up and down the frontage of a property. And that maximum size will be 1.5 meters square. So it's actually smaller. Thank you.
Good. Question? Okay. Anyone else? Is the item carried then? Carried? Thank you. And the last item before us is an IPD, the information previously distributed on the improved process for resolving municipal addressing anomalies. Is that received? Received? Thank you. Yes, you can comment.
I'm not going to request that this be held, but I am this item hit the press yesterday, and residents are beginning to wonder if their street is going to be affected. If I could just ask that staff make it clear as quickly as possible which streets are affected.
Yeah, that's a good point. And as Councillor Shirelli said when he was speaking, his support for Ms. Gregoire, on 2 occasions in particular, we really had contentious situations, but we work very well on these, and it's been a lot of work. But part of the problem is the fear that something different is going to change. Councillor Shirelli?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, and also it requires council members to show some real spine on some of these occasions. You know, I have 2 Hadley streets in my ward, and on different occasions, the wrong vehicles have gone to the wrong streets, and this is a very unsafe situation, and Ms. Gregoire has pointed that out, and some people aren't going to want their street name changed, but in the end, it doesn't matter. We have street names to help people find places, so when the street names become the reason people can't find places, it's antithetical to the point of their creation. So it takes some... you know, I think you have to, even though it's a small issue, you have to take a bit of a stand on it and make sure it gets cleaned up.
Thank you. And finally, with Councillor Hubley, I guess I should have held this IPD that we were receiving, but that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to thank Ms. Gregoire for her work on this, and it was my motion at the last term of council that, as Councillor Shirley pointed out, we did 148 streets successfully. But there's around that number that's remaining, and the city amalgamated over a decade ago, and so that was the need for this. So I really want to congratulate her and her staff for giving us a solution so that this year we can clear up the backlog from the former municipalities when they amalgamated. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and just closing on that, it really was, I think, contentious to a great degree because there were so many in municipalities that were already fighting the fact that we had amalgamated. And so now we're later into the process, and I think people are seeing a greater Ottawa. And I think that will be helpful as well. They know more about their neighbors, right? So is that information is received? Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go back to the first held item, which is the application to alter the Charles Billing House at 187 Billings Avenue, and we have our heritage planner, Ms. Collins, coming forward. and Mr. Smith. What did I do with... Welcome.
So, Madam Chair, Ms. Collins will give a brief presentation to the committee just to set the stage and the context for this application.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Leslie Collins, and I'm one of the heritage planners in the Planning and Growth Management Department. The application before the committee today is to alter the Charles Billings House at 187 Billings Avenue, which is designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Just to give you some context, the property is located at the end of Cavendish Street, sort of at the intersection of Billings and Cavendish in the Alta Vista neighborhood. This is an older aerial photo, but the building was an L-shaped building on quite a large lot. You will notice that it doesn't have a door facing Billings Avenue. Its front door faces away from the street, and that's because the house, in fact, actually predates the street pattern here, so it existed prior to the street pattern. This is a current picture of the house taken last fall. You can see some of the additions on the house have been removed. As I just mentioned, here's the front door of the building, again facing away from the street. The house was built in the 1850s, prior to the 1850s. The evidence, the historic record is a little bit fuzzy earlier than the 1850s, but we do have evidence that it existed prior to 1857 when an addition was built on the house. This just shows, again, the front door of the building as well as some of the architectural features. It is a very vernacular, pioneer kind of house from the mid-19th century. Wood-framed windows, wood siding. It was built by the Billings family. For those of you who know, the estate of Bradish and Lemire Billings is nearby and is a National Historic Site and a museum that is run by the City of Ottawa. This is the rear of the house. It has had several additions that have been removed over the last few months that were not included in the heritage designation, which is why it doesn't look so great. Also, the building is vacant, and so as such, the owner has boarded up the windows and secured the building against entry per the property standards bylaw for vacant buildings that are designated. So the property was designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act in 2013, and this application is before the committee today because applications to alter designated heritage buildings require the approval of City Council. This application was heard by the Built Heritage Subcommittee at their meeting of January the 13th. This is the site plan for the proposal. I've flipped it around just so I can make it bigger. So we have Billings Avenue actually running along the right-hand side of the screen. So this is the gable end of the house that faces Billings Avenue. This is the original front door. This is the proposed addition. It's a two-story addition at the back. And then this area here that is hashed is the area of the building that is proposed for demolition in order to accommodate the new addition that has been proposed. So just to show you some elevations. So the north elevation, so this is the rear of the building. The bottom image is the east elevation. So the back of the original house is here. It's sort of a confusing site. So you can see there is a one-story glass link proposed between the existing building and the new addition. The new addition has a gable roof with intersecting gables, which mimics the roof pattern of the existing house. It is 1.6 meters higher than the original building. But it is separated by this one-story glass link in between. So this elevation on the top here is the south elevation. This is what you'll see from Billings Avenue. The end of the house is what you currently see, and then this is the little front vestibule that I pointed out. And then this is looking from the west, so standing in the yard, looking at at the historic building, and this is the side of the new addition. And again, this is the other side of that one-story glass link I was referring to. Just a few renderings, just to give you an idea of how the property might look if the development is approved. There would be a new driveway coming in off of Billings Avenue, which would open up this sort of forecourt in front of the house. Right now, the site is quite overgrown. It was vacant for I think probably about 3 years prior to its sale to the current owner, and had been, in the years prior to that, had not been well maintained. So as part of the designation bylaw, the City of Ottawa, City Council passed a Statement of Cultural Heritage Value, which is included as document 3 of the staff report. And this document is used to assess the proposed alteration and its impact on the cultural heritage value of the property. So it was designated as a rare vernacular example of the Ontario cottage style, associated, as I said, with the Billings family and the development of the village of Billings Bridge in the 19th century, and it has interesting contextual value for its orientation away from the street, which indicates the early settlement of the property. Along with that statement of cultural heritage value are a list of heritage attributes, and these are the physical elements of the building that reflect its cultural heritage value. So it's 1.5-story height, side gabled roof with central gable, the siding, the small entrance vestibule that I pointed out to you, the rectangular window openings with their wooden trim, and again, its orientation of the front, excuse me, I have a cold. Orientation of the front entrance of the building to the west. The other document that staff use in assessing these applications is the Parks Canada Standards and Guidelines for the Conservation of Historic Places in Canada. And this document has been approved by City Council as the standard for assessing heritage applications. So the relevant standards here are Standard 1, conserve the heritage value of an historic place. And in this instance, we are looking at retention of 80% of the original building, protection of the heritage attributes, and the location of the addition at the rear protects the contextual value that I've talked about. Secondly is Standard 10, repair rather than replace character-defining elements. The existing wood cladding, red brick chimney, and diamond-shaped windows will all be repaired, restored, and retained as part of this project. Standard 11, conserve the heritage value when creating any new additions. So in this instance, the addition is compatible through its massing and its materials. The historic building remains a dominant presence on the site because the addition is set back at the rear, and the glazed link provides a clear differentiation between new and old. And then Standard 12, create any new additions. So I've paraphrased here a little bit. The historic place will not be impaired if the new work is removed. So we are looking at demolition of approximately 4 meters of the length of the house, and this will have a negative impact on the massing. However, the building will still be able to read as a distinct entity because of the proposed glass link between the two, and therefore has deemed to be appropriate. Has been deemed to be appropriate. A cultural heritage impact statement was requested as part of this project. The complete cultural heritage impact statement is included as document 7 of the staff report. And it concludes that the development proposal presents an overall positive impact for the heritage resource. The cultural heritage impact statement talks about demolition of approximately 30% of the original structure, but after the as a reaction to both staff comment and the comments from the cultural heritage impact statement, this amount has been reduced to 20%. Consultation. Councillor Cloutier is aware of the application. Heritage Ottawa was notified of the application, and its comments are included in the staff report. And I believe Leslie Maitland is here to speak today as well. Neighbors within 30 meters of the property were notified, and the Faircrest Heights and Alta Vista Community Associations were notified of the application. So the recommendation today is to approve the application to alter, issue the heritage permit with a 2-year expiry date, and delegate authority for minor design changes to the General Manager of Planning and Growth Management. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee might have on this application.
Does anyone have anything to say, or can we wait till after the delegations come forward? After the delegations, we have 4 delegations. Okay, have fun with everybody. The first one up is Ms. Leslie Maitland. which makes you the first delegation for the Planning Committee for this term. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Oh, and before you start, the one thing I didn't say when I was doing the housekeeping is that we are going to always stick by our 5 minutes to make it fair for everyone. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today, and let me express my congratulations to all of you to your appointment to the new term of council. Heritage Ottawa very much looks forward to working with you constructively in the next few years. I wanted to address two aspects of this proposal, the specific proposal and also how the decision came to be made about it. At the Built Heritage Subcommittee, Heritage Ottawa spoke in support of this proposal. It may sound a little odd to you that we're supporting a proposal that suggests a partial demolition of the structure. But looking on the balance of a fairly innovative approach to intensifying on the lot, retention of a building that was truly the subject of demolition by neglect. We weren't going to lose 20% of this building. We were going to lose 100% of this building. The addition is a clever design. There is no other place to put a parking facility on this property except where it has been proposed. So on the balance of pros and cons, in an ideal world, you would save 100%, that's true, and that indeed may be what your decision is. But having done this for many decades, I guess I'm a half-full kind of person, or in this case, an 80% full kind of person. So that was our position with this one. One of the other concerns raised at the Built Heritage Subcommittee is that while the building is being jacked up to replace the foundation, it will be vulnerable. Yes, that's true. When buildings are being renovated, they are vulnerable. It's a fact. But I think we may confidently rely upon the expertise and the reputation and the experience of the architect Barry Hoban to make sure this is a successful redevelopment. You can't do better. My other concern is how we arrived at this decision. As Ms. Collins noted, this was designated Part 4 designation in 2013, so very recently, and as she noted at the Built Heritage Subcommittee, it was done fairly quickly, and perhaps the identification of the character-defining elements was not as perfectly done as she might have hoped and as we might have hoped. It speaks to the fact that we are in a perpetual reactive situation with respect to heritage. And this is because the city is under-resourced in terms of staff and financing in this function. This is an ongoing problem. The heritage reference list hasn't been updated. We talk about that for years. The City of Ottawa website is weak on its guidance on heritage conservation, and Heritage Ottawa has committed to working with the city so that our website will do a lot of what the public needs to have. We will do this. This is what we hope to do proactively. There are not enough city heritage planners. There aren't. 3 is not enough. And if you look at the numbers of heritage planners in another city on a per capita basis, it's certainly true that they are under-resourced. The age of this building, the fact that it's a wooden building and has clearly undergone many permutations, would have warranted a building report by an engineer or a heritage architect. And again, because the city is under-resourced in these areas, that was not done. This is unfortunate. It sounds like I'm criticizing staff. I am not. I am 100% supportive of staff and hope that going forward you will be supportive of them as well. And an aspect of this is also revisiting the Built Heritage Subcommittee agenda. So going forward, I support the heritage planners of the city, not 80%, but 100%, and I hope that you will as well. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to address them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maitland. Does anyone have any questions for Leslie Maitland? No, thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
And next we have Ms. Nina Decker. Nina Decker. Welcome. Thank you for listening to me speak about the Charles Billings building today. I live in a neighborhood, and we're very excited to have a heritage building right in our neighborhood. It's very nice to have an early 1800s construction. It's a beautiful, it's in its original location. It's got built with local material. And it's a fine example that the Billings legacy is not just limited to the Billings estate. It is that all the Billings families worked and lived close together, and I think that's important for us to remember as a term of history. I'm speaking for my first time at the Planning Committee because I think it is important to preserve these buildings. These buildings are irreplaceable. Even if we truncate and try to build it later, it's just a reproduction. This is the original building. It does need work, but we are able to make those buildings up to date, and it will be a beautiful building. I feel strongly about preserving the whole building, and the thing that I believe is missing from the report is why are we creating 20% of the building? Why are we not preserving 100%? And it doesn't, if you look at the site plan, it references, you can see that it's tight. In the Heritage Subcommittee, there was mention of preservation of a tree behind it, but it still doesn't explain why you would purposely lose the integrity and the symmetry of an old pioneer building. Why would we want to demolish any part of the building is the question. So the site plan also shows that it's to accommodate a large addition, twice as large as the existing building. The addition of 2,700 square feet in addition to the heritage building would make for a large 3,800 square foot home. The site plan limitation does not represent a true scenario. The heritage building sits currently on a very large lot, the widest lot on Billings. The space is limited because the developer chose to sever the parcel in two so he can build another building beside it. So the planned 2,700 square foot addition will crowd the heritage home, and then only to be further crowded by a new addition being built on the lot that was originally part of the heritage building. So the only reason for the proposed demolition is to pack as much new house for the developer to sell. It appears that profits, not preservation, is foremost on his mind. His plan to partially demolish the building and to crowd it by bigger, newer buildings is not in keeping with the Heritage Act. It's not in keeping with a city who wants to maintain strong heritage links for the continuation of the building and also for tourism. Currently, the property is a bit of an eyesore. The building is partially demolished. There's tarps covering one side. The windows are boarded, and there's a tall metal construction fence around it. Some people may support the proposal because it's an improvement to what it is today. However, there's wonderful potential for this site, but this proposal does not come near its potential, and it does not preserve the heritage asset. Because there's so much land surrounding the building, there is no need to damage the heritage building at all. 100% of it could be maintained. There's no need to crowd the heritage building. There are 3 recommendations I would like to share with the committee. The first recommendation is when the severance for a heritage property is proposed, that the Heritage Subcommittee is circulated and that they approve only with the condition that none of the heritage building can be demolished due to space limitations. And the second recommendation is to make sure that people who buy heritage properties are true stewards of the heritage property. And the third recommendation, the most important at this time, is for this committee to vote down this current proposal because it does not make the most of the potential of this site. It unnecessarily destroys the heritage building, and it will result in unnecessary crowding, and because there are better options available. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Does anyone have any questions? No. Thank you for coming out. Next up, we have Mr. Barry Hoban. Welcome, Mr. Hoban.
And welcome you all. Pleasure to speak before the newly constructed Planning Committee. I'm not going to reinforce what the Heritage Report Leslie Collins has spoken about, nor Ms. Maitland, because I agree with that in 100%. What I want to do is to bring some overall balance to the discussion. The very first thing is when this property was acquired, there was proactive discussion with the Heritage Branch about what might happen and how we might save the existing building. So this isn't a case of suddenly acquiring a heritage building and then wanting to basically compromise it. Just the opposite. And this is actually a very good news story. In Leslie's report, she refers to the form of the building being a shelter or a cottage form from that time in history. And I think it's important to realize that when you actually make a valiant attempt to preserve that scale and form, that actually has implications. The more relevant images are the ones at the top two that you see there. Yes, there is an addition on the back, and the reason that there's an addition on the back is because you have to preserve the scale at the front. And so that scale at the front is actually incredibly modest. You can't actually program and use bedrooms in the second level, even though they did, but in 2015 it's not possible to do that. And so when you look at the actual scheme, what you see is actually everything is about the heritage part of the building. It's how you actually experience it from the street. You were fortunate enough to have in Leslie's images of what it is right now and what it was, cluttered with additions, etc. What we've actually done is cleaned all that up so you can actually recognize and appreciate the original building form. That's incredibly important. I find it odd that in listening to the CBC News this morning while I'm having my morning coffee that somehow this got on to be a big news item in Ottawa. But in that little news clip, there was discussions about cladding, about stone foundation, and a bunch about form. And I think realistically it misses the overall story here. Realistically, over the course of its life, this building would have to be repaired with a modest wood exterior. The ongoing repairs to the wood exterior would have been part of the maintenance of any building. So that's really not an issue. And the issue of the stone foundation, as you can see from the images, the building sits so far into the ground you can't even see the stone foundation. So in totality, basically what we have is the kind of reinvention of a heritage building, a celebration of what it was, managing and designing any new upgrades to form and to program so that they're at the back of the site and you can't appreciate them. And as Leslie pointed out, the glass link, speaking to true heritage conservation strategies, that you can differentiate between what was important and what was the historic part and what is being added. So those are my simple points. This actually is a very clear good news story, and I'm just shocked that it's on CBC News in the morning, but then I guess I shouldn't be shocked by what happens on CBC News.
And everybody who's not CBC News right there is really happy right now for what you just said. We do have a question, Mr. Hoban, from Councillor Leeper.
Mr. Hoban, it's good to see you here, not for the last time, I'm sure. I have a question. I went back to the 2013 designation report. I spent a bit of time on Sunday evening tramping about the space. And one of the things
that's while NFL football was on. Is that right?
Are you watching the New England game or? Mr. Hoban, the centrality of the central gable struck me in all the material that I've been reading to date. This is an example of early Ontario cottage style, and everything that I've read so far indicates that the symmetry of the space is part of why it is exemplary of that style. When we lop 20% of the building off on the wing and we remove that symmetry, is it still a representative example, a rare example of a particular style?
The symmetry that you talk about in terms of its form is actually more about that end elevation that faces out onto the street than the appreciation of the length of the building, and that would be my case. That would be my position back to you. And as you experience the building, it's going to be more like those two images at the top, but not as in the elevation that you would see on the right-hand side at the bottom. And so, you know, nothing is absolutely perfect. Programmatically, the very ability to save 80% of the building is basically balancing what we're actually going to do with this building as we reinvent it. And it's no different than the problems of amazingly large buildings where we actually can't find a use. They're constructed as single-family homes and no longer have any use as a single-family home because they're 12,000 feet. I mean, that's what we're actually trying to reinvent this building so it actually retains its presence on the street, even though the street wasn't a big deal when it was actually first created. But the notion of the forecourt in front of it, be able to provide breathing space around the existing building, those are all relevant things. I'm not so much focused on the symmetry front to back as I am to the symmetry that we now experience the house from.
And a follow-up, Mr. Chair? And then a second question. When I take a look at the cultural heritage impact statement, it indicates that the statement should look at alternative development approaches that result in compatible development and limit negative impacts. I don't see any indication in the cultural heritage impact statement of what some of those alternative development approaches might have been that could have left the whole building here. It doesn't sound like many different configurations of the lot were looked at, or if they are, they haven't been presented to this committee or to staff.
Definitely not to this committee and definitely not to Built Heritage, but definitely to staff because it was an iterative process. We met with staff in advance before the property was acquired. We presented schemes to staff for their comment, and basically this is the balance of that. The last nuance it was to increase the retention, a greater amount of the existing building that was previously proposed.
Well, we'll have to take your word for that. Thanks, Mr. Robin. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thanks very much. And Councillor Brockington has a few questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd hazard a guess that this is news because we're discussing a partial demolition of a heritage home from one of Ottawa's leading pioneer families. So I'm glad this is news. It should be news, and it is news. My question for you, Mr. Hoban, is to comment why the proposal to how you considered this site and why it was not possible to build further back on the site to retain 100% of the building instead of the 20% compromise that we have before us. Was it not possible to build the expansion of the house and maintain 100% of the existing structure?
Well, I mean, Councillor, appreciate the comment, and it comes from a position that says it's more science than art, and I would come back to you and say that actually what we're trying to do is balance a number of things in the process. If you look at the floor plan, you can see that basically we almost touch the rear property line. We're trying to balance the program for someone who would want to take on this house. I think the last presenter talked about the weight that someone might put on someone who purchases a heritage building. Part of engaging with someone who would want to take it on would be able to solve the functional programmatic issues of house in a really great neighborhood on a sizable piece of land. And so yeah, I guess you could say if we just made the house 30% smaller and then no one would buy it, that I would save the existing house. So, I mean, it's a matter of balancing off these two things. The other part is that there's a rather significant tree in the backyard where we didn't want to encroach on that tree. We considered that to be an important part of the planning. So it's not just a matter of retention of the existing heritage property. It's actually creating something that's of value in terms of what is being added to the house, so it all makes sense. And quite frankly, the internal workings of the house demanded that removal to make the rest of it functionally work. So that would be my simple response.
Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Cloutier.
Thank you, Chair Harder. To my colleague Jeff Leaper's point, the original proposal was to demolish 30% of the heritage property, and that was through, like our delegations have spoken of, through discussion with Heritage Ottawa and through our heritage staff. That was reduced to 20%. And I also want to, most of the points that I had have been discussed and asked, but I will point out that it certainly does highlight the heritage qualities of the building by taking away the non-heritage parts that have been demolished in the past year. The original heritage Billings House is highlighted on the property, and the community appreciates that very much. And my only other point is that the community associations have been engaged in this process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hoban. Okay, last speaker, last delegation is Alan Bateman. Mr. Bateman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a partner with Gemstone Developments on this project, and I just wanted to reinforce what Mr. Hoban said, that we initiated the call when we were contemplating purchasing the property and contacted the Heritage Department of the City of Ottawa, and we've been proactive, as he said, to make sure that we retained every part of the house that was workable, and through good working relationship with Mr. Hoban and Ms. Collins here, we think we've come up with a very good proposal here for the property.
Thank you for coming out today, sir. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Bateman? No, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So if there's no one else to speak, we're going to close public delegations. I'm going to come back to the committee for questions and comments, and we'll go to the chair of the Built Heritage Subcommittee, Councillor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Chair. And as we've heard this morning, this issue was considered by the Built Heritage Subcommittee last week. I just thought I would mention a couple of things. The first is Ms. Decker raised three points that she felt should be considered in the consideration of this matter. And I simply wanted to say that her first point, the issue of the severance of that lot and the fact that the Built Heritage Subcommittee did not play an active role in that severance, did not comment on it, did not have actually the jurisdiction of the terms of reference to do that, is actually an issue which the Built Heritage Subcommittee is taking up as part of its mandate review, which Council asked it to do in the approval of the governance report in early December. So simply to say that Ms. Decker has a point there, I think, and it's something the Built Heritage Subcommittee plans to take up and will bring to Council before the 1st of April in terms of seeing whether or not there is more engagement from a heritage point of view that can be considered in the context of situations like that where you have a severance. So that was my first point. The second point is I thought Ms. Maitland said it well, that I don't think anybody around the Built Heritage Subcommittee felt that this was a perfect solution. In the end, however, the subcommittee did approve the motion, and at least in my case, I can say I was informed certainly by the staff report, by the position of Heritage Ottawa, by the Cultural Heritage Impact Statement, by the position of Councillor Cloutier, who was the ward councillor, by the fact that the community associations were engaged, did not oppose. They had some interesting questions and comments. And also in the end by the fact that a majority of the citizen members of the Built Heritage Subcommittee, who are heritage experts, also voted in favor. So I simply thought I would pass that on to the rest of the committee. Thank you.
That's important information. Councillor Leaper.
Question for Ms. Maitland.
Ms. Collins?
Oh, sorry, Ms. Collins. Thank you.
We switch her around all the time. We confuse the two of them.
I'm just wondering, Ms. Collins, whether you agree with Mr. Hoban's assertion that in the original designation report, when we talk about the importance of the gabled roof with the central gable over the entrance, which really speaks to that symmetry, that is less important than the end that faces the street. Do you still consider that this building with the loss of the symmetry would still be a good representative example of the Ontario cottage style?
Through you, Madam Chair, the original building was actually not perfectly symmetrical. It does have, we call it a central gable because it's pretty close to being central. The historic record, as I said in my presentation, is a little bit fuzzy. The building was likely built sometime in the 1830s. We have a contract agreement between Bradish Billings and Archibald McKellar from 1857 that notes that Billings will construct an addition on the house of, I think it's approximately 9 feet. It doesn't say where. It says it will be a kitchen. And then at the time we did the designation, when we did a site visit and went through the house, there is a difference in the beams in the basement. You have part of the basement has hand-hewn large timbers, and then another section of the basement has sawn timbers, which presumably would have been the later addition. But because the historic record is not complete, it's surmising. So based on our best guess, the building was never actually perfectly symmetrical, and maybe when it was first constructed, but not in the 1850s, which is the portion of the building we believe we have designated. And so I think that the preservation of the gable-ended structure with a central gable, I think that is retained in this scheme.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? On the item, is it carried? Carried? Thank you very much. Thanks very much for your presentation. Thanks for all the delegations that came out. And now we're going on to item number 6, which is the official plan amendment for 3288 Greenbank Road. And while I said that we were holding that for an informative presentation, since that time we do have a delegation that's in opposition as well. So before us we have Mr. Felpetti, welcome back, Lily. David Wise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just given that this is the first meeting of Planning Committee, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Felpetti, Manager of Development Review for the suburban area, and immediately to my right is David Wise, Program Manager for the suburban area west of the Rideau River, and to my far right is Lily Zhu, who is the lead planner for this particular file. And if I can just add a couple of comments ahead of the report presentation, I believe that this report is very much in keeping with some of the principles that the Chair enunciated at the outset of the report, outset of the meeting. It incorporates an important piece of city building for the suburban area. As well, we believe the process by which we followed was a good one, a little bit of compromise on all parties. Development certainty for the development industry, certainly. The public was engaged, as well as a lot of the surrounding landowners that we believe are very much in support of our report. And it's quite innovative as far as bringing a new concept or newer concept, making the secondary plan in the town center, making it more modern, and something that we as a whole, as a committee and as a city builders, can very much support. So I'll ask Lily to give you the presentation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, committee members and Madam Chair, the application in front of us right now is the official plan amendment for 3288 Greenbank Road. The property is located in the South Nepean Town Center, and shown as in the right line here on this air photo. It is to the west of the Greenbank Road, south of the Chapel Mills extension, and east of the existing Kennedy Burnett Pond. The immediate surrounding area contains mostly vacant urban lands. To the north is the existing Strandherd retail district of large format retail as well as commercial service uses within multi-tenant buildings. The Barhaven Center transit station is about 500 meters away from the northeast corner of the property. To the further northeast is the recent ampersand development consisting of 4-story residential buildings, as well as recently approved the Tiger development of 16 stories. The property is also subject to the secondary plan for the South Nepean Town Center, also known as Area 7 in the official plan. The secondary plan designates the site as high-rise mixed use for 6 to 12 stories, mid-rise mixed use for 4 to 6 stories, mid-rise residential for 2 to 4 stories, neighborhood park, and a school with alternative land use destination for 2 to 4 story mid-rise residential. The applicant is proposing a number of amendments to the existing secondary plan destinations. The first is to change the land use destination for the northeast block from high-rise mixed use to mid-rise mixed use. The permitted building height will be changed from 6 to 12 stories to 4 to 12 stories, and the maximum residential building coverage will be removed for this land use destination. The school block's configuration will be adjusted slightly, and the alternative land use destination for the school block will be changed to allow 4 to 12-story buildings to be consistent with the block to the north. The park block will be shifted slightly, and a part of the mid-rise residential area will allow 4 to 6-story buildings. Finally, there are a couple of changes to the road structure. A collector road will be realigned so that it will run along the property line, but maintaining the intersection point at Greenbank Road as originally planned. A part of the single-loaded road along the Kennedy Burnett Pond is proposed to be changed to allow pedestrian and cycling connection only. Staff has reviewed the proposal based on official plan policies, especially regarding mixed-use centers and town center, as well as the principles and the objectives in the secondary plan for this area, and found that the proposal is of a compact urban form. It provides desirable density of 100 units minimum per net hectare, or approximately 150 people and jobs per gross hectare, which exceeds the official plan's minimum density requirement for this area. The proposal will provide opportunities for mixed use. It offers a range of job and housing choices, provides a variety of low, medium, and high-rise building forms, and allows minor commercial and service uses, as well as live-work units at the ground floor along public streets, especially along Greenbank Road and the Chapel Mills Drive. The proposal maintains a grid pattern, which is the key point in the official plan to allow future intensification within the town center area. It supports efficient movements of all modes of transportation, including walking, cycling, and transit use, and it provides a pedestrian and a bicycle-friendly system of streets and blocks. As a result, staff recommends approval of the proposed official plan amendment. Finally, here is the concept plan provided by the applicant. The concept plan will be finalized during the subsequent subdivision site plan and rezoning process. And this will wrap up my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lily. Any questions before we go to delegations? Yes, Councillor Nussbaum.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. My question relates to the treatment, I guess, of Street C with the addition of mid-rise mixed use on the north part of that package above the park. My question relates to whether or not the secondary plan could consider treatment of that as a main street type of street. You talked about the importance of the pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. Is there going to be any effort in there to create something where residents will be able to enjoy some kind of main street-like experience? The concern is on the north side, it doesn't look like you're going to have a continuous building front. So I'm just wondering how you intend to manage that, assuming you would find that kind of approach desirable for a mixed-use area like this.
Okay. Just to clarify, Councillor, you're asking for this stretch of the road, right? Street. Oh, okay.
C.
Street in the middle here. Well, this is internal road. Currently has a lower destination as a local road in the overall community. The South Nepean Town Center has two main span road, which the first one is the Greenbank Road. The other one is the Chapel Mills Drive, which both abuts the property. This is Chapel Mills Drive, and this is Greenbank Road. So these two roads are the main roads in the community. The Barhaven Transit Center is at near a near location to the intersection of the two streets. So to consider the mixed use and pedestrian level activities, these two streets will be the focus for such type of uses. But the proposed buildings will allow ground floor non-residential uses, such as minor service uses or home business live work units. So that will be permitted across the land, and the most desirable location will be along the public street. So to answer your question, Councillor, there are opportunities to provide a different atmosphere along those streets.
Councillor, through the chair, if I can add, just to add on to Lily's point, it's a question of character as well, too. And one of the key things that Lily's just enunciated here is that the primary commercial character, the primary main street character, will be focused on the arterial roads, which, as Lily said, would be Chapman Mills Drive, just running along the north side of the site plan. And that's one where Lily has indicated that we would have strong, certainly, we've kept the option open for ground floor commercial activities to occur along there, and certainly get that commercial character along that street. That's also the primary route as well, too, of where the future BRT, Bus Rapid Transit System, will be running through there. So we certainly wanted to make sure that we keep that flexibility open to really have that Main Street feel there. The other corridor, as Lily also mentioned, was the Greenbank Road on the right side, where, again, that's going to have more of that Main Street characteristic with the buildings tucked very close to the street and addressing it. Street C is very much of a more residential character. Now, it will still be following our design guidelines. We have very comprehensive design guidelines for infill communities and for greenfield communities, where that one will be, through site plan control, we will be looking very closely for the applicant to address that street edge with very strong architecture, landscaping. We are in discussions with respect to how we treat the pedestrian realm and the cycling realm within that, because it will be of a residential character within there. Certainly the South Nepean Town Center Community Design Plan provides direction to staff on how the pedestrian and the cycling network is to operate through there, and Street C forms a component of that sort of more local pedestrian feel to it. I don't know if that helps you understand that. Thank you.
Anything else? Councillor Nussbaum? That's it. Councillor Blais?
Thanks. Just to stay on that point a little bit, Street C, all three of the main streets through that neighborhood are long and straight. So does the plan envision addressing issues relating to speed, especially because we do have a park in the area, and long and straight roads in the suburbs are, raceways, and I think our work on the suburban Building Better Suburbs demonstrates that. So what's in the plan to address that on the front end so we're not paying to modify the road later?
The existing secretary plan policies has very extensive details in terms of controlling the street and providing a pedestrian-friendly environment in that area. Some basic elements includes 2 sidewalks, not all the streets, on-street parking. The ampersand, which I mentioned earlier, located here, and to the northeast of the site, implemented that guidelines. So with a very desirable and appealing streetscape. With the on-street parking and the pedestrian-friendly environment, it will naturally reduce the driving speed.
Okay, so the white bubbles that exist around the rectangles, which are the buildings, are those sidewalks? Is that what that demonstrates on the plan there?
Councillor, just to answer that question as well too. This is a conceptual plan there. And what the applicant is demonstrated there is the gray surface is what the applicant has proposed as the drivable surface. Yeah. So
I know detailed design comes at draft approval, etc.
No, but just to get to I think where I think you're going, and then correct me if I'm wrong here. Feel free. But what the applicant is proposing just within there is he is proposing an 18-meter cross-section for some of those interior roads, which would be a reduced drivable area, 8.5 meters. And staff is certainly working with him to see if we can sort of make that happen with the sidewalks on both sides. Okay. That would be the ideal.
And the interior roads are going to be public roads?
That's right.
Okay. Does this concept preclude the opportunity for the local smaller roundabout versions at Jockville and Street C and Street C and Street A to slow traffic down through all 3 of those roads, basically?
I don't see any reason why.
Well, not on Chapman Mills, but at Jockville and Street C and Street C and Street A, internal to the neighborhood.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and that's certainly something that we would address as the applicant if the opportunity arises. Sure. It's a reflection back on its building form and configuration, but it's certainly something that staff can raise when we get to the subdivision stage.
Sure. I just think, especially because of the proximity to a neighborhood park or a local park, and a potential school site, that long straight roads are driveways, or tend to be.
Yeah, and I mean, we have 40% of all the roundabouts in the city are in Barrhaven. And where we're building, St. Catherine's School, for example, in south of here in Half Moon Bay, it opened last year. It has a roundabout, and it's an interior street. It's not a Greenbank Road. I think it would be problematic to think about it on Greenbank. Certainly, as you recognize, Chapman Mills will have eventually the BRT going right down the middle of it. But roundabouts are extremely popular in my community, and certainly where we have them in the city. Thank you. Anyone have any other questions? Yeah. Oh, sorry, Councillor Boggington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the staff report on page 3. There's a bulleted list of what's being proposed, and the second last talks about shifting the location of the school block to the south by approximately 25 meters while maintaining the same size of the school block, which is good to read. Is that block right in the bottom right corner here of your illustration?
Correct.
Why does it not show a school site? It appears to me that those are buildings there. It says potential school site in the bottom right corner. I just want to receive some confirmation. When does the decision get made that this will become a school site? What process has to happen for that?
Under the Planning Act, school board has a right to retain a school site for 7 years after subdivision is draft approved. We are at the official plan and the secondary plan amendment stage at this time, so we're a little bit ahead of the time for the school block to make the decision. The school block was determined in the existing secondary plan, and the existing secondary plan has a alternative land use policy existing. So this is not what the applicant asked to change. The existing land use policy says if the school is not to be developed into a school, then mid-rise residential will apply to this block. So technically, the amendment will not make any changes to the policies rather than the permitted building height for the alternative land use. The concept plan was provided by the applicant, so if the school decides that they want to develop a school, then obviously this concept plan will be revised.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. That's something actually that we used to do in the former city of Nepean. We used to do dual zoning of properties that so that there was less opportunity for surprise if the school changed gears, which they did, for example, deciding to build Adrian Clarkson over on the west side of Woodruff as opposed to the site that the Mulligan family kept available for 7 years. We had dual zoned at R4, I think, or R5. And so that when the 7 years were up, we didn't have to go through that very contentious process, and the new people moving in knew that if it wasn't going to be a school site, it might be a school site, but it could also be something else. Anybody else have anything before I go to delegations? Well, maybe they did, right? Yeah. First, yeah, I think Cumberland did. Yeah. The first, I think it's a group. It's Chris Lyon, Mark Pavick, and Mike. Wait, let me put my glasses on. Brovac, is that right? Brovac? Are you?
I missed the cursive lesson during elementary school. I'm sorry.
Brevac. Brevac. I think it's just whoever printed this, the printing is pretty bad, or I probably...
Madam Chair, I have an idea who that is.
Unlike the previous chair who really had a problem in pronouncing names, I'm pretty good figuring it out if I can read it. Thank you. Welcome.
Madam Chair, committee, bonjour tout le monde. Lovely to be here today. My name is Chris Lyon. I'm with SEMA Canada. And Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to present some concerns regarding the application and hopefully a way forward. We've had a chance to chat with the applicant, and I'm hoping that a draft amendment to the motion could be considered. But let me present first some questions and concerns. Mr. Mark Pavick and Mr. Mike Breovac are owners of the lands at 3285 Cedarview Road on the opposite side of the Kennedy Burnett Stormwater Management Facility. Their lands, along with the subject lands before you today, are part of a larger catchment area that relies on the Kennedy Burnett drain, the Kennedy Burnett Stormwater Management Facility for stormwater management. The facility itself is designed, or was designed, to both hold water, so it's more slowly released to the Jock River, and to provide for a better quality of water that's released so that we take care of our natural resources. The Kennedy Burnett Stormwater Management Facility is broken. The Ministry of the Environment has orders against the city to find a solution. A long environmental assessment process has been undertaken to find that solution, and none has been found. Before you today is an application for an official plan amendment. The document in your agenda does not address the engineering servicing study that's behind this. It is, however, published on your city website. The document in question, produced last January, identifies that stormwater from the subject lands will go to the Kennedy Burnett Stormwater Management Facility, which will be enlarged. That enlargement is no longer available to this site. And in fact, if I can, and this is important, the landowners that are part of that catchment area have been working with your city staff now for more than a year, meeting on a regular basis, trying to find a solution. The Rideau Valley Conservation Authority has been part of that discussion. The engineering side has been there trying to figure out how the pipes can work. The pipes, generally speaking, are underwater, and the pond is not working well to treat quality. Now, if I can, what's before you today is an official plan amendment. Although the servicing report that supports this amendment is old and its solutions are not current, nevertheless, there may be solutions available. The official plan, of course, is an early stage. Plan of subdivision will follow, in some cases site plan. So there are opportunities to find a solution that will be necessary to uphold not just drainage for these lands, but also for my clients' lands. All these various clients have been meeting, which means time has gone into this. They have had their own engineers look at solutions and look at impacts on their lands, which means they've been investing money on this. They've been looking for a common solution, and one is likely available, but it's not on the table yet. The amendment, if I can, Madam Chair, to the motion, which of course is looking for someone to sponsor it, is as follows. Of course, you're being asked to approve the motion, and it would be considered as follows, and that staff be directed to bring forward a solution for the Kennedy Burnett Stormwater Management Facility and related stormwater catchment areas as a condition of approval of the plan of subdivision for these lands. The solution can wait to the next level of planning. Certainly, I think the planning department needs to affirm that whether this is acceptable or not. But as it stands right now, the concerns of my clients is that another change is being made, another expectation of the Kennedy Burnett stormwater facility is being made, and in the end it influences their impacts. They might have to carry more stormwater on their site, they may have to do more stormwater cleaning, it could bring additional costs to them. There is a solution, I think, available to the whole area. Your staff have been diligent in working on it. If I can, Madam Chair, looking for a way to have that solution still held as part of the conditions for the site is something that my clients are looking for through the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, just for reference to the people around the table that don't know this, in 2007, the servicing was supposed to have already gone through this and be all the way over at Cedarview and Strand here near the 416. This has been worked on for a very long time. Don't make any mistake about it. I think the land that your owners have, is it not floodplain land?
Only portion of their land is floodplain land. The other has been identified for development.
So, but it's a big part of it, I'm sure, because I know where the Clark lands are, where the Clark still own lands, that's mostly floodplain.
And with respect, Madam Chair, one of the main drains that assists water in getting to the Jock flows across my client's lands, and right now the solutions that they're looking at would see that drain widened, the amount of land coming from my clients increased to handle stormwater that can't be handled by the Kennedy Burnett stormwater pond.
Well, as you said, we don't know that. However, what the rest of you, many of you don't know, some of you do, we approved late last year a front-ending servicing agreement with all of the landowners in the South Nepean Urban Center, including Regional, which owns the Citygate lands out by the 416, because they need that to happen too. They are currently working on $700,000 for a design, and then we followed by $7 million to do the work. So through that process, they have to find this anyway. So I don't see the need to add that. It's part of the process of the work that will be done, which would therefore be of net benefit to you as well. Trustee, where did that come from?
A long time ago.
I've never been on a school board.
Long time ago.
Oh, library board, huh?
Just following up on that point, perhaps Mr. Petty or Mr. Mosier can explain for those who are not as familiar with greenfield subdivisions, the process once the OPA is approved, master servicing, subdivision approval, et cetera, just so that the members of the committee can be, I hope, assuaged of any fears or concerns they might have.
Well said. Mr. Petty?
I'll let Mr. Wise answer.
Just if I may, Madam Chair, we've had an environmental assessment process going on in the Kennedy Burnett facility for some time. This is being led by the Infrastructure Policy Review Group of Planning and Growth Management. Development Review has had a seat on the Technical Advisory Committee, and certainly we have been fully aware of the development that's been proposed here, and also the interests that have been there, and those have been fully calculated within the group. As of January 12th, there was a preferred solution for how the water treatment and how the stormwater would be dealt with within the Barrhaven Town Center lands, and also including the lands to the east and west of the Kennedy Burnett facility. And that report is in the process of being finalized right now as we speak by Infrastructure Policy, and it would be coming to committee relatively soon. So from the perspective of staff, we are comfortable that there is a preferred solution that appropriately addresses the Kennedy Burnett facility and appropriately addresses the servicing ability of these lands to move forward. That concept is right now, again, it is a preferred approach. It is not finalized, but it is at a state where staff is comfortable that we have the structure in place to proceed with the official plan amendment, and certainly that servicing report is necessary in order for staff to approve a draft plan of subdivision. Certainly a draft plan of subdivision, an applicant is required to submit an adequacy of servicing. They must show responsible management of water, wastewater, and their stormwater on site. Before draft approval can be granted for any subdivision within the Greenfield area, those servicing studies and reports must be provided by the applicant's consultant, and they must be approved by the city. And so when the applicant comes to the stage of coming in with a draft plan of subdivision, we would expect those reports, and certainly those reports would need to be in line with the environmental assessment, which we are in the process of finalizing.
Anything else, Councillor Blais?
No, I think that's good.
That's good. Thank you. Very good. Very well explained. Anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Lyon, for coming out.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And so I'll call up our other delegation, who would be Miguel Tremblay and Frank Cairo.
Good morning. My name is Miguel Tremblay. I'm here with Frank Cairo, the owner of the lands. Rather than revisit the staff presentation, I think we're simply here to reinforce our support of the findings. Most of the changes in the OPA, and again, it's simply an OPA. It's a redistribution of building form, a refinement of that original vision of the CDP, which is almost 10 years old now, a tweaking of roadways to better reflect the development proposal, better respond to some of the existing conditions that are now out there. There have been developments that have occurred already that have conditioned the lands to some degree. There's been coordination on behalf of Frank Cairo and the city with abutting landowners for those alignments of those roads, and as a result of that, there's been some modifications to the areas, not the size, but the areas of the school site and the park, all to better meet some of the original objectives of the CDP. The densities remain the same. They just become redistributed on the lands and respond a little bit better to the development proposal. But again, the intent through the OPA is to reinforce some of the principles of the CDP and redistribute in light of a refined vision, a vision within a vision, if you will. We're here to answer questions. We can revisit any of the aspects that were raised earlier related to the school site or any other questions.
I know that I'm going to go to Councillor Leeper first, because he was talking to me about this application before the Planning Committee. Councillor Leeper?
I don't have a question, but more of a comment. I want to thank Chair Harder for her comments at the very beginning, noting the intensification pressures that Ottawa is facing. I think a key part of addressing those successfully as we grow is going to be to ensure that the suburban areas are also intensifying, that it's not all on the urban wards. And some of the elements of this proposal, moving to a grid pattern, greater height and density, the consideration that is taken for the proximity of transit are all going to be a critical part of ensuring that Ottawa can accommodate the growth in the coming years, not all just in the urban wards. I know the Building a Better Suburbs initiative is underway. I'm looking forward to helping where I can and being engaged with that process with Chair Harder, and this proposal that I'm looking in front is a good step along that way. Thank you.
And thanks very much for those comments. But I just, because not to have any kind of competition, but just to let you know, we are doing our share when it comes to the density we're achieving. In fact, higher density than in the urban areas. already. So that, that's something that we have to have more chats about, because, one of the things about having new faces around the table, we don't know each other's hoods anymore. We haven't spent 4 years looking at things, and I think that that's important. Because one of the problems that we're having with the Building Better, Smarter Suburbs is the too much density that we're trying to shovel into too tiny spaces to make them livable. So that's really a goal we're going after, and our developers in the south are a big part of that as well, and in all the suburban wards. But thank you very much for the comments, because you know what, we up until a few years ago, the highest building in Barrhaven, for example, was a stacked town. Okay, now we're a little bit higher than that with the ampersands, certainly with the 16-story Tega, and so we are absolutely. But the density we've been achieving, you can imagine if it's not going up, it's absolutely not going out this way, so it's meant for smaller situations, which makes it more difficult. We were talking about the right-of-way and the size of the right-of-ways. That interior street there is actually that 18 meters, is it? It's bigger than the 16 meters that we have in a lot of our suburban areas now, which again is part of our challenge. So that's just specific to the suburbs as opposed to this application. Does anybody have any other questions of our delegation on this file? Mr.
We just wanted to add one last comment related to the previous delegation before you go to your discussion. But given that this is really just a policy application to redistribute what densities are already permitted, we wouldn't have any appetite to support additional burden in the OPA, knowing that there's a plan of subdivision application. That application, as Mr. Weiss explained, has municipal approvals. It has other layers of provincial approval, all of which are intended to deal with stormwater issues, servicing issues. So we don't see a need to burden the OPA with additional language, knowing that there's a solution to be found.
Right, and just because Councillor Brockington brought this up, we've had many discussions with the school board on this, because there is, Minto will be building just on the other side of the, I guess northwest, but on the other side of the drain from this site, imminently. So there's going to be room there as well, and maybe the corner of Greenbank Road and a large collector, so an arterial and a very large collector, may not be where they want to go with an elementary school. So that's another part of the consideration.
Madam Chair, if I may as well, I just wanted to just welcome the new members of the committee and to congratulate everyone on committee. I'm looking forward to working with all of you in the next term of council, and my door's open and I'll be very accessible. My information will be provided so that if there's any questions that come up after today, I'll come and meet at any of your conveniences. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. So that's it. Thank you for coming forward. So we'll close the delegations and come back into committee. Does anyone have any closing comments? I have one as the ward chair, as the ward councillor. Yeehaw. Hip, hip, hooray. Hallelujah. Anyway, so with that, I hope that you'll support it as it carried. It's just the amount of work that's gone into it has been crazy. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any notices of motion at our very first meeting? We should have talked about that. Maybe somebody could have been the first one out of the gate with a notice of motion. No challenges for the next meeting. Any inquiries? Any inquiries? No? Any other business? Other than to say thank you very much. I think it was a good first meeting and a great start to the next 4 years. And so are we adjourned? We are? Thank you very much. So our next meeting is Tuesday, February the 10th. Do I need to say anything about any particular ones that are going in exception? Nothing is going to the council meeting at the next council meeting. It'd be what? Yeah. Items 1 and 2 are going on the 28th. Yeah. Thank you.